Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about comparing with words that end in ER or EST. We've been talking about adjectives and adverbs. We know that adjectives describe a noun, and an adverb describes a verb or another adjective or another adverb. When comparing two or more pronouns or nouns, an adjective can be used. When comparing two or more actions, an adverb can be used. The way we use adjectives and adverbs when comparing. If the adverb or adjective is comparing two things, then we add ER. If the adjective is comparing more than two things, we add EST. There are some spelling rules that you have used when adding ED or ING, and those same rules apply when adding ER and EST because they are suffixes just like ED and ING. For example, here, strange. When we want to add ER, we take off the E and add ER. When we want to make strangest, we drop the E and add EST. For wet, any small short word like this that ends in a vowel and a consonant, you double the last consonant before you add a suffix. So if we want to add ER, we have to put two T's, wetter, and that would be comparing two things. If we were comparing more than two things, again, you have to double your last consonant, the T, and add EST. And here the word cold. Well, cold doesn't have any special rules, so if you're comparing two things, you say colder. I might say that January is colder than December. Because I'm comparing January and December, I use ER. Here we have coldest. I've just added EST. If I wanted to say January is the coldest month of the year, I can use coldest because I'm comparing January to all the other months, and that is more than, I'm comparing more than two things there. In this example, it says land spouts are, and it gives you two choices, strongest than gustnadoes. Well, I'm comparing land spouts and gustnadoes, so that's two things, so I use the word stronger. And as I've told my class before, a lot of times the word that makes the most sense sounds correct. If I said land spouts are strongest than gustnadoes, that wouldn't sound right to us. Land spouts are stronger than gustnadoes. Here's another example. Today, the skies were you have to choose redder or reddest during the afternoon. They're comparing the color of the skies to any day. So because they're comparing more than two things, you have to use EST and say reddest. In this example, the air was either clearer or clearest today than it was yesterday. Since I'm comparing today with yesterday, that's two items, I use ER. The air was clearer today than yesterday. If I said the air was clearest today than yesterday, that would not make sense. It doesn't sound right to us. Whirlwinds throw sand higher than normal winds. Because we're comparing whirlwinds and normal winds, you choose ER. And again, the whirlwinds came earlier than the storm. You're comparing the whirlwinds and the storm, so you use ER earlier. I also have a few examples that I can show you. Now, if I were given, just one second, cover that up so it doesn't get confusing. There we go. If I wanted to change heavy and I was comparing two things, I might say that box is heavier than the bag. Well, if I want to say heavier, it's H. Just a moment. Bear with me. Thank you. H, E, A, V. Now it ends in Y, so I have to change my Y to I and add ER. Now if I had a sentence that said, the big box was the heaviest of all the boxes, I'm comparing one box to a large group of boxes. So I can say heaviest, H, E, A, V, and I change the Y to I and add EST. Heavier and heaviest. Now in this particular instance, spelling is very important because you have to remember to change your Y to I before adding a suffix. In this section, let's talk about which one would make the most sense in this sentence. Water spouts are, would we say damper or dampest than sandy whirlwinds? Well, I have to think to myself, I'm comparing water spouts to sandy whirlwinds. So I'm comparing two items, so I have to choose the word damper, because when comparing two things, you have to use ER. The blank water spout of all was several thousand feet high. Oh, should be higher. So I'm comparing water spouts, and it says of all. So that is more than two items. Because I'm comparing the water spouts to multiple water spouts, I have to choose highest because I'm comparing more than two things. The last example, it is blank indoors than outdoors during a sandstorm. I have to use the word safe. I have to decide if I'm going to add ER or EST. Well, in this sentence, indoors is being compared to outdoors. So I know I'm comparing two things, so I have to use ER. S-A-F, and I drop the E and add ER. Today on your assignment, you have exercises like this one where you're asked to add ER, EST. You have some exercises like this where you're asked to choose the correct word. And you also have some where you're given a word in parentheses and you have to decide to use either ER or EST and add it to the end of your word so that your sentence is complete. Remember, you have the page from the book, the picture of the page from the book included in your assignment in this video. While you're doing your assignment, if you still are confused and are having trouble, please remember to email or text your teacher. Thank you, guys.